It's that time of the week. Broadcasting from a beautiful basement in Burbank, CA, this is Frame Rate. And I'm your host, Kyle Pendleton, and this is my producer, AC Hoffman. And this is a show about movies for people that love movies. But there's actually a little bit of twist this week. AC, who is normally our producer, the legendary, the man, the myth.
The Hoffman.
We got the Hoffman. You gotta do all that. He's actually our guest this week.
Whoa. I got takes?
Mm-hmm.
I have opinions to share.
He does. And this is a very special episode that could only be done by him.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So today, we got two people. One, me, who was raised in the canon of film with two parents that loved movies, with family that showed me every movie, that from the age of 12 was trying to watch movies from the 1940s, that I think in my life I am too adherent to the canon. When someone says Citizen Kane is bad or boring, I still do like a face where I'm in disbelief, even though they're entitled to that opinion. It's hard for me, even though I have my own opinions, and there are movies on the canon that I don't even like, but I acknowledge that when I'm speaking about them. I go, I know this is iconic, but I'm not a fan. And I'm talking to a guy who I think has a much healthier perspective on this, and I'll let him introduce his experience with film and the canon. AC Hoffman.
Yeah, my experience with film comes from much later, I guess, relatively in my life. Because I watched, I'm not going to out myself, but I will.
No, you should.
Like, I watched, Shark Boy and Lava Girl on repeat on Disney Channel when I was 12 until I was 15. I watched a lot of Disney Channel shows until early high school, and then I fell away from TV and film. Not that I was really heavily involved with film, but...
Well, in high school you started being an editor, right?
In high school I started being an editor. I was looking into YouTube. I was getting into gaming more. I just bought my first PC, and in the midst of me gaming, I had gotten into editing, video gaming videos. Vlogging came from that. And after vlogging came short film. I think it's kind of the natural progression you see with, if you're in 2013 to the 2018 YouTube space, you've heard of Casey Neistat, you've heard of making a story. And so since all of that happened, I kind of just got into film in late high school, and I went to college for it. And even in college, I wasn't watching film, but then I wanted to do grad school. And grad school is where I got my first set of maybe life-changing, but definitely inspirational film tools and points of reference for me to start making my own stuff, but also to start enjoying as a more film fanatic. So I wouldn't say I'm a film fanatic now, but I'm definitely getting my toe dipped into the water of what does it mean to be like a film guy talking about. I swear if I hear Citizen Kane one more time, I'm going to break into a 24-hour CVS and steal all the receipt paper. I don't know, because it's one of those things where...
What a thing to do. What a thing to do.
I guess I wouldn't be breaking in if it's 24-hour, regardless.
No, you're going through the window, man.
We're going through the
window. You already
window.
Announced it. So I will avoid mentioning Orson Welles' masterpiece, but I think that's...
But no, it has its place. It has its place.
It has its place.
Sorry.
No. So I'll avoid mentioning that movie. And what this episode is, it's like, as you can see, as you can hear, we have two very different experiences. So this is the intro to Movie Mania, as I like to talk, where we're each going to have 5 movies that we recommend that either, from my perspective, I'm not going to recommend anything that's been a Best Picture nominee, that's on the top 100 of the IMDb Top 250, or is on the AFI 100 Greatest Films of All Time. I want to give you 5 that you might not have seen, might not have heard of. You might have, especially if you're a big fan. These won't be that deep of cuts. And AC is coming at this of 5 movies, not ever looking at those lists as a kid, not ever having adherence to what they say, of just 5 movies that when he was getting into film in his early 20s that he loved.
Yeah, coming at it just from my own point of reference, but also trying to give a little bit of a deeper cut. I'm a sci-fi fan. I love Nolan. Spoiler alert, I'm not putting Inception or Interstellar on this list because I know that's just too baseline, even though I love those movies. It's just I wanted to give some of my own perspective of things that stretched me as a incoming grad student or film enjoyer to not just look at this movie as a source of entertainment, but also as a source of cultural impact and musical influence. There's different angles I'll try to approach each of these movies with. that as someone who's not deep in the lore, deep in the canon as Kyle, hopefully we'll stretch all of our bounds in like separate ways.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. But before we get started on discussing those movies, how are you, man?
Doing a podcast on a Saturday, producing, loved it. I mean, we just recorded the Lydia episode. That was awesome. I mean, that was our first episode to record, so it was truly grateful to see this thing fully in its
I know. We've been planning for a month, and we finally got it going.
Yeah.
What is the last movie you saw for the first time that you loved?
For the first time.
Yeah.
Oh man, am I cheating if I go to Letterboxd?
No, but we won't put that in the episode.
Okay. You know, Fantastic Four came out. The conversations that I get to have now with everyone provide me such a different perspective than just the film bros in Texas. Also, I'm from Texas. That might come into play.
It almost always does.
Yeah.
And I'm from Southern California, which is almost always mentioned as well. Yeah, we saw Fantastic Four together.
Yeah, and I think it's seeing that movie as well as paired basically with Superman just a couple weeks prior. Those two movies were like, oh, like I can feel the different approaches from DC and Marvel, but also since we've been in the Marvel climate for a decade plus now, it's like, oh, I can see their direction, and I feel like my eyes are a little bit more widened and open to seeing what's going on in the film space. Fantastic Four was one of the first movies that, at least this year, left me a little bit hungrier for more of that IP. Superman, I'm like, this is like a classic Superman. It feels like that's not drawing me to DC anymore, but Fantastic Four left me with a lot of interest in the IP and where it's going to go.
Yeah, I agree. I am nervous for Avengers Doomsday, though.
Yeah.
What I want to say, though, is that one thing that I'll often be talking to people, and they'll only see 3 or 4 movies a year in a theater, which I think is normal, but most of them then are big blockbuster movies. And so I think it's funny if, for me and like some of the other people at our office that see like a movie in theaters a week or watch a lot of movies at home, by the time there's like a big action blockbuster, nobody has watched that type of movie in like 30 movies. And like in their diet of movies, they've seen like 30 movies, 12 of them didn't speak English. None of them came out in the last 10 years. And then they'll watch Superman and they'll be like, oh man, it was awesome when you just punched the guy. And it's like, and I'm not saying that's any better, but it's like, you know, in context of what you're watching, sometimes you just, so I love the summer season every year is my point, because I sometimes just really love watching The Thing or Superman just punch the heck out of somebody. But AC, what's the last movie you rewatched?
Rewatch is hard because I've been on a straight just like new film kick. Since I missed out on a lot of classics like Fight Club, Colossal, and Taxi Driver. You know, real true classics there.
Yeah, except Fight Club.
Except for Fight Club. Yeah. I just rewatched Princess Mononoke.
Oh, awesome.
And
I've never seen that one.
And I truly loved getting to see it because the last time I watched it, I was in my remote campus out here in LA before I moved. And I fell asleep like an hour and a half into it, and then I woke up 30 minutes later as it was ending. And I enjoyed the 1 hour and 40 minutes that I got, but I missed 20, 30 minutes of really beautiful animation or really well, hand-drawn animation, even though it was gore-like in ways. Because also Studio Ghibli, just Miyazaki, I believe that's the director that does most of the Ghibli films that we know.
Yeah.
And it was great to get to experience that. Also with friends of mine, and I believe we watched it with like 5.1 surround sound. It was like truly just a great experience to revisit.
All right. So now we have our off-topic question for the episode. Barbecue. If you can't have Texas barbecue, AC.
Yeah.
Who's in second place? Is
Who's
it
in
Kansas
second?
City, Korean barbecue, Brazilian barbecue? We're opening up not just to states, but to other countries.
Other countries?
If you need it.
I think we have to go to a different country.
Okay.
As much as I appreciate the South and the different kind of like, Cajun barbecue, I really love Cajun food. I mean, I get Tony's Cajun sauce and put it on Cane's.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
I just experienced Brazilian barbecue for the first time, and that was a great experience. But I think this is only because I've had their teriyaki barbecue sauce. It's potentially a Korean or Japanese barbecue.
Oh, okay.
I think the self-service Korean barbecue sounds like a great thing to go do with friends. But Japanese barbecue, I feel like there's got, that's one that I'm like, I don't even know if there is Japanese barbecue.
No, there definitely is.
Like, there's got to be something there, right?
Yeah.
And with Jong, one of our managers here at work, he's been introducing me to a lot of Filipino dishes, and so I feel like that Eastern Asian
Yeah.
culture of barbecue is just that would have to be my second.
So that's what you're ranking number 2. I think that's
Yeah.
totally fair. Now, I think it's time to start the episode. The introduction to Movie Mania, AC. What is your 5th pick?
My 5th pick.
We should also establish these aren't necessarily in an order. They're just in 5 movies we recommend to you, the listener. That this isn't a ranking of the 5, but it's just 5 movies each that we recommend.
Yeah, and I'm trying to accomplish different things with all of you, so I can't put one experience over another.
I am also.
Right.
I fully agree. Okay, number 5.
The first one, and I'm starting with the bigger names.
Okay.
I started saying it. I love Nolan. I love sci-fi. I had to put Memento in there.
Oh, that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I think it's an absolute just classic when you watch it. I believe it's one of the first to break the mold of conventional linear storytelling. I think watching Memento for the first time when I was 21, just started grad school, I just got some film friends, and I watched Memento with them. And I was like, I realized as I was watching, like, I never... I grew up on YouTube, or 13 through 20. I was just so used to linear storytelling and just kind of what is happening at the moment that I never even. It's not that I didn't think of it, but it was just so great to have this approach of jumping around the timeline so much that it tells the story in a completely different way than if you were to tell it linearly.
Yeah, Memento. I watched it. I think I was 13. Because I bought it at the $5 Blu-ray bargain bin because my parents really encouraged me watching movies, and my dad would let me buy R-rated movies. I watched it while they weren't home. Thankfully, I didn't have a TV in my room. My cousin, she was like, came in hearing some of the language that was used and was like, what the heck are you watching? And I was like, Memento. And she just was like, hey, I guess that's fine, and went back to her room. It blew my mind. It's still one of my favorite movies of all time. But I want to acknowledge, have you ever seen the video of Christopher Nolan explaining it on the whiteboard?
No. Does he have like drawing lines, doing like is it Paul Day against
the Charlie Day?
Yeah, Charlie Day.
So you hope it's like that, but then when you actually see it from his perspective and how he draws it out, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but I do really, maybe we'll put the link in the episode description. You literally put your head in your hands like it's that simple. Like he explains it that fast. It's really incredible, and I also agree. But also the use of black and white versus color was, at the time, I had definitely never seen a movie that mixed them. The idea of flashing back, flash forward, and the end of the story is not actually the end. It's just when it completes it for the viewer.
Right. It's just the one part that finally connects the strings.
Yeah, it's, I think, almost impossibly brilliant. Yeah, what a fantastic... And I also want to shout out Guy Pearce, great performance in that movie.
Yes.
Really launched one of my all-time favorite directors' career. Yeah, smile on my face just thinking about it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, just for my own, and I'll reference this episode, my thesis, because I finished grad school just under a year ago. Memento was one of the first films that I referenced or building my thesis because of its experimental use of, I'm not sure if it's experimental per se, but jumping between color and black and white. And I don't know if it does ratio.
Aspect ratio?
If it does aspect ratio.
I don't remember, but Christopher Nolan has changed up aspect ratios in movies before.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if it started there.
Yeah, and jumping around between 3:4 and 16:9. So even though it's dramatic in space usage, you still have the placement of the subject essentially the same. It's just how much of the room is surrounding them. That stretched my mind to understand subject placement as well as how important is it that, like, where's the person at?
Yeah.
Love Nolan, but I want to go back a little bit, earlier in his catalog and introduce people into the sci-fi genre. I know it's not sci-fi per se, but it is like memory play and like just his filmography deals with a lot of sci-fi.
Yeah. So my number 5, and I think this is going to be a really funny one because it's almost flipped, is that people at the office we work at a film company ostensibly, and people will make fun of me for being a little bit of a Nolan diehard, and people will talk to AC about how he is a big anime guy, even though he's definitely not the biggest anime guy at the office, but he's watched some. But he recommended Nolan, and I'm about to go anime with Studio Ghibli, if that's how you pronounce it. Maybe it is.
I think in Japanese it's like Ghibli. I think it's
Ghibli.
something like that, so that's why I pronounce it Ghibli.
Okay, I'm just trying to copy you. I feel like you would know. I'm going My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, yeah.
So Totoro is getting the recommendation for a few reasons. I do like it for like a couple personal reasons because it's about two siblings in the movie. They're girls. In my life, I had a younger brother. There's like kind of a giant fat rabbit that's hanging out with them, and my favorite stuffed animal was Chubby Bunny. So there's a little bit of a personal. There's a couple other things to it too, but there is a little bit of a personal connection. But I also think it's fantastic film, but it's also I think great as you're going into watching more movies because I would assume a lot of people listening have seen Pixar or Spider-Man Into or Across the Spider-Verse, and they've seen animated movies before.
Yeah.
And I really want to establish that animation is a medium, not a genre. It's not always for children. Now, I did happen to choose a movie that is definitely for children, but I think the other notable thing about this is that it's nothing like Western animation would do because there isn't really a plot. It's about the life of these characters, and there's definitely telling a story, but so much of it is the moment to moment, or they'll sit down on the grass and just like breathe for a second. That watching My Neighbor Totoro, it feels like you're watching a world that is living and breathing, which I do think plenty of American movies have accomplished, but I think in Hayao Miyazaki's career, he is maybe the best ever at creating that feeling. And I think Totoro is the most bare bones of those movies where it's just like you're watching this world that you wish you could spend a day in. But I think it's also really beautiful because it's about the relationship of this family and also Totoro the giant rabbit. But there's underlying drama to it. There's one or two sequences of actual drama, but most of it is underlying pain that this family has, but happy moments. And I think that is such fantastic storytelling and filmmaking that is so different from what people may have seen before. So I think that this is a great movie. It's also, you can watch it dubbed or with subtitles.
Yes.
But I think it's a great movie to sort of start the journey into what you can do in animation because it's not too unfamiliar from a Pixar movie, but you could watch it and then you could go like, oh, that's anime. Maybe I'll watch something R-rated next. Or you could watch it and go, I liked watching it subtitled. I'm going to watch a Japanese live action movie. I just think this is a great movie because there's a lot of directions you could go. You could go more non-narrative after if you're interested. But I think that this is a great movie to like start. And if you like any of the elements, you could split off and search for clues of what you're really interested in next.
And I think a really great thing. I'm so glad you had Studio Ghibli on your list.
Do you?
I don't.
Oh,
I don't.
good. Okay. I was like, I kind of
do.
anticipated both of us having one.
One of my honorable mentions at the end, I kind of touches on the animation aspect, but
Awesome.
I really love Studio Ghibli because of things that you said with Miyazaki. Is that right, Miyazaki?
Yeah, Hayao.
Hayao.
Hopefully I'm pronouncing things correctly.
Yeah, you got that one.
Yeah.
The French and Italian.
Okay,
words.
I am like far worse at European words than I am at Japanese, Chinese, or Vietnamese just because of the neighborhood I grew up in. But also I feel like Japanese words often, the way that they're spelled in English is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
French is not. It's like when they're like you don't say the last consonant. It's like why consonant? It's like why?
It's like when you have four vowels together, but it makes a consonant sound. I'm like, how did we ever get
what
there?
do you do? There's a lot of like Akira Kurosawa. His name is so pronounceable. You could have never. You don't even have to know Japanese. If you just read it, you'd be like, that's what that name looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you would say Akira Kurosawa. But like, you
got
2%
off.
off.
Yeah, you're basically there.
Yeah, Hayao Miyazaki I think is sort of similar. But that is my rant about words.
Yeah.
I have more to come probably later.
For sure. And Miyazaki, I think, accomplishes so well allowing the audience to both see the subject's expression and emotional connection with the scene while also allowing the audience to make their own connection and experience with the scene. There's so many times where just use another one of his films, A Boy in the Heron, just his most recent. There's many times where you get to see the expansive universe that these characters are experiencing. And with My Neighbor Totoro, it's similar, but it's like within the it's very grounded within.
Yeah, it's a pretty small movie overall.
Yeah, but he allows for that atmosphere to really rest and let the audience experience. And so I think we've talked off pod about this a lot, but just, our dopamine receptors are fried. And we really just need to kind of have that reset of appreciating breathability of the grass and the air in these moments in movies that let your eyes wander and just explore the frame. There was a movie I wanted to put on the list that was, I don't believe is too narrative, but it was just really wide expanses and wide shots, just things happening. And the director just lets you witness the frame.
There was this movie that I watched in an experimental film class was about the 3 types of motion that you could have on screen. So like sideways, up and down, or
like forward and backward.
Forward and backwards.
Z-axis.
And I never got the title of it. But like the 5 minutes we watched were like so fascinating because it was just like objects moving, and which like should be boring. But the way that it was cut and like the way that the objects look, how they're placed in the frame, like whoever made it clearly put so much thought into it that I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And I don't think a professor ever told us the name of it. So I was just kind of like, well, it'll never come. But moving forward, AC, what is your number 4?
Let's see, what is my number 4? Talking about international films.
Awesome.
Again, one of Lydia's favorite, if not her favorite, Amélie?
Amélie, yeah.
Amélie, yeah.
And we can pronounce that French word.
We got it. I did.
Suck it, France.
I did mispronounce it this morning.
Oh, no.
But we got there. We got
there.
Yeah, I love Amélie. And a lot of these movies I haven't rewatched because I see them with such rose-tinted glasses because of the experience that I had with them. It was one of the first times that a French film, like an international film, really I was able to connect with. There's what is it, 9 to 5? Or 5 to 7.
Cleo 5 to 7.
Cleo 5 to 7. I liked a lot, but Amélie, I think it connects with the Gen Z audience because of it keeps up with the pace so much, and it has such like not a heartthrob through line. And it's just a character living her life and experiencing day-to-day things, but with a hint of.
It's got the whimsy, man.
It's so whimsical. It's so whimsical, and not only its story, but also its acting. It's whimsical in its cinematography. It's whimsical in its music. Like you're just living on a cloud when watching this movie, and it's only subbed. I mean, it's a classic. It's 2001 French film. For me, it's one of the first movies that I witnessed as a film student that stretched me away from just watching Spy Kids, and so seeing Amélie, it's a very delicate, but it's so much fun to watch. Like if you get more into French film, it's a lot more experimental. It's a lot more, I would say, emotional, and a lot more, what's the word, melancholy. Yeah. But I think Amélie really presents a great approach, or not a great approach. I think Amélie allows American audiences of our age to get into French film.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think Amélie, like you mentioned it with how everything is directed at being whimsical, that I think it's one of the most aligned movies ever made, is that the cinematography to the performance, to the score, to the color grading, to the set that they're using, to the story that they're telling is all perfectly in tune. There's not any misplaced notes literally in the score or when they're going. And I think that that's what really makes the movie work, is that the vision there was complete and it was in every frame of that movie.
Yes. Just having such a strong direction. Maybe that's why I could fall in love with it so easily, is because it was just like, oh, here, it's just so upfront. It just is what it is, and I appreciate it for not missing the mark in any way. It's kind of like whenever a short film is adapted into a feature, at least I like to think that they're very tight because they start with this very small section of the film and they can just grow out a little bit from that and keep the story real tight. And I think Amélie has that feel where it's, there's a lot of different places they go. Like I forget how many locations, but it's many locations that they jump around from, but it's intentional with everything that they choose. And as a Kubrick fan, I love the intentionality of film.
I think that's fantastic. And speaking of one that's really intentional, is my number 4, which also came out in 2001 and also starts with A, but is American, is Adaptation.
Adaptation.
So Adaptation is an odd movie, and I'm glad that you had the reaction because it gives me the excuse to explain it. But I want to tell my really short story about it. Is when I was in college, I was talking to one of my professors about different screenwriting courses that we have, and she said, well, in the third quarter of this year, we're going to do a class on adaptation. And I responded, the movie? And no, she meant adapting a book or something to the screen. But no, I assumed that we could get a whole 10 weeks, 10 hours of lectures, 10 hours of discussion out of this movie. That's how much I love it. So what Adaptation is it's directed by Spike Jonze, written by Charlie Kaufman.
Oh, it's a Spike Jonze film.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's essentially the follow-up to Being John Malkovich, and it actually almost opens with Being John Malkovich being made. It's like the third scene where you meet the main character, Charlie Kaufman. So the idea behind Adaptation is that there was a book about flowers that I really wish I remembered the name of. That would have been really incredible for this podcast. So Adaptation is based on The Orchid Thief by Suzanne, I believe her name, something. It's okay. She's played by Meryl Streep. We'll refer to her as Meryl. It's a real book, and it's mostly non-narrative about orchids, and Charlie Kaufman was going to adapt it. And he was struggling with it mightily. He didn't know how to turn this book into a movie. So the opening scene has Chris Cooper and Meryl Streep. They meet, and it's very similar to the opening of the book. After that, it goes to Charlie Kaufman struggling to write the movie. But it's the movie that you're watching. So it's like this incredibly meta thing. The screenplay is credited to Charlie and Donald Kaufman. Two brothers, twin brothers. Here's the thing, though. Donald doesn't exist. So he's the only Oscar nominee to not exist. Donald is in the movie. Nicolas Cage is playing both Donald and Charlie. So he just gave himself a brother. And the brother has like horrible ideas about writing, but he follows structure and he's getting help by like basic people, while Charlie Kaufman doesn't want this to be a Hollywood movie. So the meta of the movie is he's adapting an impossible to adapt book that he's really struggling to turn into a movie at all, and he doesn't want it to be a Hollywood movie, but probably the only way is to make it a Hollywood movie where it lies. And the character that Meryl Streep is playing is the real author of the book. And the ways that this movie goes, like she was like horrified when she first read the script, because I don't want to spoil like how it goes off the rails, but it really goes off the rails. But eventually the author got on board and approved it, and then they made this movie. So it has nothing to do with The Orchid Thief, like the book, almost at all. All of those scenes are not even in that book. It's like a complete fabrication, but it's still officially an adaptation of The Orchid Thief, but it's more about the concept of adaptation and also whether Charlie and Donald Kaufman are the same guy. And it's also kind of making fun of movies where the twist is that these two people are the same guy.
I've recently learned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Recently watching Fight Club.
Yeah. And I think it is Nicolas Cage's finest performance. I also think it's one of Meryl Streep's best performances of all time. Chris Cooper, who's also in the movie, won the Academy Award for it, which I always look at like him of that movie. That was the guy. I shouldn't bash it. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It is an incredible watch, especially because the movie, it feels like, and this is, I think, one of the hardest things I think any writer has ever nailed. It almost feels like it's being written as it's going. But that is a bad sign for any movie that's actually being written as it's going, because that means they had no plan. This movie had the perfect plan to make it feel like it had no plan. And I think the reason you should watch Adaptation is because it's not necessarily a movie about filmmaking. It's actually, I think, a film more about writing. But I think that it's a great movie in terms of getting more abstract. I think it still has such a focus on it's a movie about writing. But there are so many movies out there that aren't as literal as the stuff that we normally see in theaters. And then I think if you like Adaptation, the other Spike Jonze movies or the other movies that Charlie Kaufman has written or directed are the perfect next stepping stone to getting just a little more out there, including like there's this one called Anomalisa, or one that I can't pronounce called Sindoche, New York, or Syndicate, I don't know. Those are like also like really fascinating experiences, and I think from there, those movies are great to watch, and then from there you can make another leap. So it's like from the meta to the abstract. Some people disagree with me on this, but I think this movie, even though it's a completely different type of weird than say like a David Lynch has, it's also a good primer for being able to watch those type of movies too. Because those movies are like Terrence Malick movies. They're obviously thinking about the writing, they're making the movie, but there's so much that's imagery or sound focus. While Charlie Kaufman is so much about the writing focus, also Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, yes, okay.
And he wrote that one after this one. So it's like watching those movies, you start thinking about the form of what you can do on screen and in writing and stuff, and then you jump to even more abstract movies, and you have a larger appreciation. So I'd strongly recommend it.
And it sounds, since I haven't seen it, it sounds like something that I wish I could hit with my list, where it's the meta play on Hollywood films, making films about Hollywood films.
Yeah.
About making Hollywood, it's just like that self-serving.
Yeah.
Like it's that kind of movie making lends itself so much to being egotistical or just so about itself that they get caught up in not making a movie for other people to watch and it's only for them.
I think the thing that makes adaptation work is it's not even a movie for people in Hollywood. It's a movie for Charlie Kaufman. Like, he wrote himself into the movie as the main character.
Yeah.
And there's a sequence where, like, a writing professor is telling him about story structure, and it's literally like a structural beat to set up the third act. And it's like he wrote that for only him. But, like, it gets so specific that when you watch it, you're like, this is delightful.
Yeah.
At least for me. So, AC, what is your...
My number three. My number three. I had a picture of Citizen Kane to remember the CVS bit. My number three. I think the comedy side of film, excluding the movie Friendship, needs to be back in the zeitgeist of the 2020s.
Okay.
Especially if you're thinking around like the financial side of like 2008, and it's, comedy comes in and relieves some of that panic of America. I think we need that back. And to bring in a new generation back to an old great film, I have to say Airplane.
Oh, yeah.
I think Airplane, it's one of the films, and I kept thinking to myself when I was making this list, I'm like, what movies stretched me or put me out of my comfort zone? And I think Airplane, even though it is like a comfort comedy movie, I had to be locked in to really understand all of the wordplay, because you also have to think about the context of who is in the movie. And
Yeah.
I think it was you who recently brought it up in the workplace. What was the scene that was about a football player?
About the basketball player, about
Basketball
Kareem
player.
Abdul-Jabbar.
Yes, where there's a whole scene about them kind of making fun of his basketball career that I just never would have understood. And I honestly didn't understand it outside of the punchline at the end of that scene.
Yeah.
And I watched that movie 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. And so I think a lot of these movies are great jumping off like places to start where it's a little bit more comfortable, start where this transitional area of film. After Airplane, you can go experiment with other movies. And I think Airplane has aged fairly well. Of course, it was, I believe it was an 80s comedy.
Yeah, I think it's 80s. It might have been late 70s, though.
Probably, I think so. You're right. And so, like, the humor is not going to be fit for all guests involved in 2025. But I think there's a lot there that the whole genre of comedy, like, it's always nice to go back to that side of film.
Yeah, I think Airplane is like similar to my adaptation rec, where it's so literal that it's almost abstract.
Yes.
Like the jokes that they like, "Don't call me Shirley." It's like no one would ever say that, but it is a literal interpretation of what the person said. And I think that is like also a really good primer to get abstract later.
Yeah. I was going to put Primer on the list, and then I realized Primer's not a great intro to film.
It's maybe a little farther than that.
It's a little too...
I've actually never watched that one.
I only watched it for my thesis.
Okay.
But it was a great watch for someone who is looking exactly for that kind of content.
Okay.
So Airplane. And I mean, Naked Gun, I guess, is a recent example of revisiting that era of comedy and bringing it back to the 21st century. I wish I saw it in theaters, but I also haven't seen the original.
Yeah, you might still be able to see Naked Gun. It's very funny. But my number 3
yes,
is Harold and Maude. I don't know if you are familiar with this film.
No.
but it's about a woman who is about 80 in a relationship with an 18-year-old boy.
Okay.
And the reason I chose this movie is it's about depiction. So much of what film is the depiction of an event. And Harold and Maude is about this 18-year-old boy who drives around a hearse that wants to kill himself and even attempts suicide or fakes attempting suicide at multiple points in the movie. Hilarious. Every scene hits the punchline.
Is this a comedy?
It's
Sorry.
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. Okay.
It's a comedy.
Okay.
And the woman that he meets is she's off her rocker. She's full of life, even though she's old, and he's full of death, even though he's young. And she's teaching him how to live. And it's actually really romantic. But if you were to see that relationship in real life, you would be so creeped out because real life isn't like the movies. And it's got phenomenal soundtrack with a phenomenal score. It's got fantastic energy. It's deliberately paced but consistently funny, and the performances from the two leads, Harold and Maude, are genuinely incredible. And it has a really, I don't want to allude to anything in the ending, but it has a really emotionally affecting ending, where I also think the ending is about depiction, because you could also say that ending would ruin a real person. But the ending is depicted as happy, and you get the point of what the movie's trying to say. And I think it's a good movie to remind ourselves movies aren't reality.
Yeah.
But the other reason I wanted to shout it out is that it came out in the 1970s, I believe 73, but I'm probably wrong about that. It's directed by Hal Ashby. His career was cut short because he passed away due to a drug overdose, but he has a few movies in the 70s like Harold and Maude, Shampoo, The Last Detail, Coming Home, Bound for Glory, Being There. I'm just making sure those were all his movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6. So he's 6 movies. He's 8 total. They were he's basically doing one a year. They were all absolutely incredible. But because he passed away, he's not remembered like Spielberg or Scorsese or even George Lucas, who made the most popular thing ever, which is completely different. But during the 70s, there was the movie Brats that they talked about. And it had Spielberg, Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Brian De Palma, Hal Ashby, Peter Bogdanovich. Robert Altman was older, but he was still kind of in the new Hollywood. The movie Brats were the young ones, but the new Hollywood. Then there's a couple others who have been deservingly canceled. And then even Mel Brooks had his heyday in the 70s. And I would say Bob Fosse with Cabaret and all that jazz. Is that there's so much Alan J. Pakula, I think it's Pakula, made Clute and The Parallax View. Warren Beatty directed some stuff as well as starred in some stuff like McCabe and Mrs. Miller by Altman. Where the 70s American period, and the 70s American period is also technically considered to start in 1967 with the release of Bonnie and Clyde, but to 1980 with the release of Heaven's Gate that crushed it.
Yes.
Michael Cimino did The Deer Hunter, which is not one of my favorite movies, but should give a shout out. Raging Bull, 1980, but I would still consider it kind of in that vein. Also, 70s had some of Kubrick's best work. I could just go on and on about the 70s, and I don't want to be that person that says movies used to be better, but in that decade they were. They're also that decade is better than the decades previous, but I really think the era, and there's a book called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls by Peter Biskin. That's one of my favorite books of all time, and I read it because I loved American 70s so much. Is the best film movement ever. And I think Spielberg and Scorsese stand above everyone else because they stayed away from drugs. And I don't want this to sound like a PSA, but literally a couple of these guys died, and so it's important to note. And they also just kept making great movies. I mean, some people like Brian De Palma, he didn't pass away or anything. He's still around. But slowly his movies got worse. And I think it's just due to he hit retirement age, and it's rare that people can still be great at 80. But I don't want Scorsese and Spielberg, who deserve to be as famous as they are. But to someone wanting to get more into movie, there's other people out there that you should watch from that era. Paper Moon, Bogdanovich is a great starting point, but I think Harold and Maude was the one that I chose because it also just has so much to do with the depiction of events.
Yeah, the 70s was a great year of film. I mean, I could be a 70s fan, but also I'm a Kubrickian in not many ways am I like Stanley. But I'm very detail oriented, and every decision has a meaning behind it, and it's so apparent in that film and also in that age of film.
Yeah.
Where it's everyone doing something, maybe not different, but doing something that is very intentional and heartfelt, or something that has a lot of brevity to it.
Yeah.
I also love to pair it with 80s sci-fi because 80s sci-fi is
So we're going into number two?
Is a turn of a genre.
This is a fantastic transition that I think I might have just blown. But is this your number two?
It's not my number two, and surprisingly, I don't have any sci-fi on here. However, I did just want to point out the 80s sci-fi.
Yeah.
Spielberg sci-fi, especially, right?
Spielberg, John Carpenter.
Yes.
The Thing. Want to shout that out?
I mean, Blade Runner, brother.
David Cronenberg with The Fly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, The Fly and Blade Runner were the first two films that started to impact me in college. And Blade Runner was my first film to watch in college. Like when I got into college, Blade Runner was the first one, which made me hate it. Because at the time, I was someone who hadn't watched film, watching that out of nowhere. Not only was I watching it to make a trailer. So I watched it a second time and a third time. And I got I was like, please feed me anything else but Mr. Harrison on the screen.
Yeah.
But later revisiting it made me appreciate, I love Blade Runner now, and 2049 is on my list, but I think it's a great revisit to talk about, that 40-year gap of revisiting old classics. But then The Fly was one of the first horror films that I was really able to get into because of it's because of the sci-fi aspect of it, of this crazy mad scientist turning himself into a fly and the body horror. I do appreciate anime, and some of them get really gory, and the way that my brain was working at the time really connected. But The Fly wasn't the only horror film that I really got into, which brings me to my second.
Okay, awesome.
My number two, the horror film that I really appreciate or would like to bring to light is The Descent.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily.
I didn't know you liked that one.
I love The Descent. I think there's so many things, it being like a female-led horror film without it having to be,
they never mention it. It just is.
It just is. And,
yeah.
And I don't remember it being raunchy at all. Like, I don't remember having it to be about the sex appeal of the film, how some slashers have that aspect to them. I didn't feel that at all in this film when I was 18, 19, so I don't think that was a part of it. Maybe, again, that's just me respecting it in the later context, having not freshly rewatched it. But also, I hated horror film because I was just so scared to watch horror. But The Descent was one of the first ones where I can watch this in my room, full screen, lights off, and I feel comfortable watching it. Clearly, there's anticipation. Clearly, there's going to be some kind of jump scares at some point. But it felt like it was a style of horror film that I could watch, and it really did allow me to open up to later horror films that I've written 15 pages on. I've talked to you a lot about Jordan Peele and my huge love for the Jordan Peele filmography. But The Descent, about it being female-led cast. I think it's 6 females, but also it had one of the first examples of different meaning endings or different endings. Yeah. And this is something I had forgotten about until recently. I believe it was the UK and the American releases had different endings.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if it was intentional, and because I don't remember the endings, or maybe Google was wrong about this. I won't go into what they are, but it opened my eye to stories don't have to be a beginning, middle, and end. Experimenting with a film concept, and I don't have to write with the ending in mind or the beginning in mind, just letting the story take its place. And The Descent, I think, it's about ladies who are going spelunking. That's the movie.
Yeah.
There's things that jump into the screen that you see later into the film, but it's such a simple concept about the horrors of being spelunking and in the small caves. And I think that's a claustrophobia I think they do really well visually exploring how that feels going caving. Because, I got sweaty palms when I was watching it.
Oh, yeah, it's a claustrophobic movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I super enjoyed it, even though it was a horror film. And for me to say that at that age, I think speaks volumes to it being open for audiences that might not be into horror film.
So speaking of claustrophobic movies, my number 2 is Rope from the late 1940s, I think 1948, by Alfred Hitchcock. I think it's a really fantastic film. I think it's a great recommendation because it'll get people watching it thinking about camera work, because even though it is more than one shot, and now these days we can see totally, because they didn't have a digital stitching and eventually resolve back then.
Yeah.
They had to actually put the camera, point at a wall, make sure the lighting stayed the same, change out the reel, and then keep going. So you can see the stitching is obvious now, but it's made to look like it's all one take.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is like 6, 7, 15-minute takes because it tops out less than 90 minutes. And the plot of it is two guys that are best friends, maybe more than that. They're more than that, but you couldn't say that in the 50s.
Yeah.
You can say that in the 40s. Kill one of their friends.
Mm.
And they invite all of that person's, his fiance, his parents, an old professor that all three of them had, to this party while they're keeping his dead body in like a chest. That they just, no one's gonna open it. Why would you open someone's chest? And they actually put like a candle on there to kind of, if you know he's dead in there, you would look at it and be like, oh, that's a memorial. But they don't know. And so the whole movie is that it's a game, that they're the mouse, but they don't think there's a cat. Like they're basically mocking everyone there. But one of the guys invites Jimmy Stewart from Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock mainstay, and he's the cat because the other guy, Bruno, is worried. He's like, why'd you invite him? He's the only guy that could figure us out. And so now the game is afoot of whether or not Jimmy Stewart's going to figure out they committed murder before the end of the dinner party. And it's just so perfectly tense. And the dialogue is so fascinating. And watching different characters have different emotional reactions, knowing what they know versus what they don't know, and seeing people clue in. It's just this masterpiece of a movie that is so tense because it never cuts.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, Alfred Hitchcock hated that he did that 10 years later. He said editing's like the soul of cinema. It would have been better if I could have moved the camera or close up. But I think the constraint makes the movie, and anyone should watch it if they want to think more about, not a movie about filmmaking, but more about the filmmaking in the movie they're watching and how it affects their experience. So that's my number 2.
The synopsis that you gave, would you say it's like the first 20 or 30 minutes of the film, or would you say that's primarily the film where do you see all those actions unfold?
So he's already dead, and they're stuffing him into the chest when the movie starts, and they have like 10 minutes of real time, but also movie time. It might be 15, but I think it's 10 minutes till people are going to arrive.
Okay.
So they're setting up the party, and then within 20 minutes, Jimmy Stewart arrives, and then it's the game is afoot. Because, like, obviously he's got to start maybe cluing or not, but he's there before minute 20. So I gave you probably the first 20 to 25% of the movie.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's the premise. There's actually, I think, there's a lot more characters than I said. There's probably 8 total, and each of them has about 3 beats dedicated to them. So there's a couple small arcs that are irrelevant to that plot that are also happening at the dinner party that I think that make the movie feel full and robust as well, and help the pacing of the whole thing. But anyways, AC, you're going on to your number 1. But first, let's get your honorable mentions.
Yes.
Let's just rip through them.
Okay, so the first one is just anything by Denis Villeneuve.
Let's rip it. That's good enough.
Basically, Denis V had a shout out. Blade Runner 2049 Arrival and Dune. I wanted to put on the list really badly as A Real Pain. I think that's a really great emotional film that's a character study where you get to experience, again, similar to how we were talking about Miyazaki, where you get to see both the emotional weight that the character is experiencing, but you also get to see for your own eyes that same setting. I think Real Pain does that to a smaller degree, but you get to see that character, like the character's emotional state even more. And my personal favorite film, I couldn't put on the list, but I just had to shout it out, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it's a really great action film that for our age, if you're into action, if you got that short attention span like a lot of us, Everything Everywhere All at Once keeps you in the film the entire time, but also has an emotional and familial weight to it that is really well paired with the action of the film. Just for my own collage-like mind, it settles so well in my brain. And before I get to the last topic, for animation, I had to put in Puss in Boots: Last Wish.
Oh, yeah.
So well executed, such a beautiful painting look to its animation, which is really well paired with the Spider-Verse series, where you have that comic book animation and you have the painting animation of just really creative ways that show what we can do now with style and how style can impact the weight and feel of a scene while maintaining a classic film feel. You know, the painting of Puss in Boots doesn't take you out of the film because it looks like paint. It's supplementary. It's additive to the look and feel. And to wrap it up, of the honorable mention to bring us into our number one, I have to mention Django Unchained.
Ooh,
Love Django Unchained. As a man from the South, I think it's a great film. I mean, Jamie kills it, Leo kills it, and I forget
Christoph Waltz.
Waltz kills it. I mean, a wonderful watch of just bad dudes getting their comeuppance. Is that the word comeuppance?
Comeuppance.
Comeuppance.
You were saying the right word, but I think you just pronounced it more like comeuppance.
Comeuppance. They're comeuppance. Yeah, they're getting their big goods. And they're getting cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the last film. Similarly, we're talking to the subject of race, is Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, yeah.
I think talk about a film that stretched me outside of my comfort zone into an unexplored territory that I never would have thought of. I don't want to spoil the twist of this film. And even having a twist I didn't know anything about this movie going into it. But just to propose what the film is about a black or African American man going into the telemarketing side of business and how he puts on his white voice and uses his white voice to do sales. And he has a conflict of interest, of course, because he's not allowed to be himself. He has to stick to the script. He has to be someone that he's not in order to, make it in the business. And he talks to his really artistic girlfriend about this and talks to his bestie brother about this. And not brother, but, friend. The film is so much about the artistic exploration of race and culture, which to me is super important, as well as just the movie, the twist it has was such an out-of-nowhere experience, and it took me to a place that I was like, oh, nothing about film has to be consistent.
Yeah.
It does need a through line in order for, I think, an audience member who's not familiar with it can relate with it. But this film takes it to such the twist of the movie and doesn't make it about, oh, this person was the murderer, or all of a sudden we're in the deep sea.
Yeah.
The twist is just so out there, but it's so within the tone of the film that it has that through line and it has that, again, intentionality. It points to a bigger subject or to the big picture that it's presenting.
Yeah. I love this movie. And I agree. Wild movie. It's also just straight up hilarious.
Yes.
And it has so much personality just coming out of every scene that it's so intensely watchable that I really appreciate. I think it's also really smart from where it starts to where it ends. It's like a movie that has a thesis and a conclusion.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate that because I think sometimes when we discuss movies, and we're not going to spoil this movie for anyone on this podcast, a lot of it, I think sometimes we start with what the movie is about, but not the conclusion it makes about that subject for fear of spoilers. But I think Sorry to Bother You is one of the best in that it's about something at the beginning and at the end. I do believe death of the author, the audience should interpret what they see in a movie, but I think that there are times where an artist is trying to make a firm statement.
Yes.
I think Sorry to Bother You is one of those times where I don't want to say people that don't come to the conclusion are misunderstanding it, but I'd say it will lead you to a place and then you can reflect on whether you agree with that or not. It's kind of how I see this type of movie. But I think it just is a wonderful, just like start to finish blast that I think has something smart and clever to say. Honestly, more than something. There's a lot there, and I think there's a lot to discuss in every scene in the movie. I think it's really well constructed, but it also plays like a roller coaster.
Yes.
And I know somebody that actually hated it because of how it was roller coaster, and they're actually maybe not the person that this episode would be for because they like a few movies and I don't think they're that interested in expanding. But I think if you're interested in expanding, this is a movie you got to take the chance on.
For sure.
Just like absolutely have to.
I think the conversations that come from it, I think a lot of film is about the aftermath of the film. And we make, as a filmmaker or as filmmakers, as writers, for me, my thesis was about addiction and me getting over addiction. And my personal experience aside, it was less about me trying to tell a lot of people that, but I wanted people to feel that. I wanted people to go away from it feeling like the experience was about this, and then having that conversation with people post watching that movie. I had one more honorable mention that I forgot to mention,
Oh,
but
perfect.
I think it deals with the subject exactly of having the conversation post the movie. And as a man of faith, I gotta talk about Scorsese to some extent. The Last Temptation of Jesus Christ. I think it's a really great movie. Again, another grad school watch. But that one, it's not the Bible. It's, it's Martin Scorsese making a movie. And so a lot of people have issues with it, but I think that's the point. The point is to have this conversation about your faith, about your religion, about your beliefs that I think you should revisit later on, and not just take a movie at face value. It allows for conversations to be had outside of the theater experience.
I think that's fantastic. And I know I need to watch that one. I've never actually jumped on.
I think it's the only Scorsese I've seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, no, you saw Taxi Driver.
You know what? Yeah, you're right. All right,
Yeah,
until
yeah.
this year.
Yeah. Okay, so my honorable mentions. Shoes by Lois Weber,
Yes.
1916. It's fascinating. It's a really old one. A lot of my honorable mentions are really old movies, just because I wanted to show that those could still be really good. Shoes is only 50 minutes. It's on YouTube. I don't think it's going to get a copyright strike for me bringing that up because I doubt anyone actually really even owns it at this point. But it's a movie about a family in economic despair where the daughter wants new shoes and her only resort might be prostitution. And if you're like, that doesn't sound like a movie from 1916, you would be wrong. The 1910s were kind of a completely unwieldy time. It's the 1920s where they put in the Hays Code and film had so many rules. But also in the 1920s is when studios really started to pop up and push female directors out. So Lois Weber is one of the earliest and only female voices for like another 50 years. And I think her stuff is pretty important in that regard. I think she's also really talented. And Shoes it's 50 minutes. It's really good. Another silent film I wanted to recommend is Charlie Chaplin's The Kid. A lot of his movies are venerated, but The Kid I feel like sometimes goes unmentioned. And I think it's like his funniest and most emotional. I think he has other ones like Great Dictator or Modern Times that are like, I don't want to say smarter because I think The Kid is made with a lot of care, but they deal with more political or social topics. The Kid is really just like it's his character of the tramp and this boy that he finds that wants to be him and their love between them. It's really kind of a tropey story, but I think it's phenomenally executed. I also want to throw in A Night in Casablanca, which is a Marx Brothers movie, and it originally started as a parody of Casablanca, but they were told that legally they couldn't do that. So it just has vague similarities to Casablanca, but it's so funny. And it's so witty. And sometimes people, in my experience, I'll recommend someone an old thriller movie and they'll be way more willing to watch it than an old comedy movie. They just don't believe people could be funny back then. And I think that's wrong. And I think Groucho Marx and Charlie Chaplin proved that wrong. So I wanted to do those two. Night in Casablanca is in the 40s, not a silent film, but still black and white. I also wanted to throw in A Portrait of Lady on Fire because it is probably the only movie to, I think, tackle head-on Laura Mulvey's theory of the male gaze and try to create a female gaze. And I think if you enjoy this podcast, you start getting into film theory. I think that's like, it's recent. It's also, this movie came out in 2019. Like the best movie you could possibly watch. It's also, even if you don't care about this stuff, it's a really strong love story. And then my final honorable mention is called Superstar, a Karen Carpenter story. This movie is only like 20 minutes. It wasn't allowed to be released. It's impossible to find is what my professors told me, and he showed us on like a real specific copy. Then one time I mentioned to a professor like, dang, I can't ever watch it again. He said, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. But it makes sense that the guy that did initially show it to me did not know YouTube. So it was Superstar Karen Carpenter's story. It got into hot water because it was unlicensed and it was about the real person Karen Carpenter and her singing and then how she passed away. But it's all done through Barbie dolls, and she was anorexic, and that's eventually what gave her the health problems that killed her, and also societal pressures. And this movie uses Barbie dolls to tell the story. So it's actually Mattel that sued them because it was a lot about women's body image through Barbie dolls and what it was doing to women. So I think it's the best Barbie movie ever made. No hate to Greta Gerwig's movie, but Superstar Karen Carpenter's story is one of the creepiest and most unsettling movies, and it's very quick, but it's told entirely through dolls. And I always thought it was really fascinating. But my number one, without a doubt, is Bicycle Thieves. And now this movie is in the canon. And I didn't check, but I believe it's not a Best Picture nominee. It's not in the IMDb Top 100 right now, but it often fluctuates there. But this is one of the very first foreign films I ever saw. But it's not on that just for personal reasons. It's on that because I've come back to it. And I think that it is one of the best depictions of poverty ever on screen. And the reason for that is it came out in 1947. I believe it was filmed in 1946 in post-war Rome. They're filming, the people in the background are not actors. They're not extras even. They're just people. So the life in this movie is real life. Everybody in it had pretty much never acted before. The whole point was to depict Rome as it was. Even though it's a fictional story, when you ground it in that much reality, that the story of a man losing his bicycle, gets stolen from him, and therefore he can't feed his family because there's no jobs. They're rebuilding the city, and someone just has to deliver like newspapers or food. I forget exactly what he's delivering. It doesn't really matter, but he needs the bike to do the job, and then it gets stolen from him. And now his family's going to be poor once again. And so it's him and his son, and they go out in Rome to search for it. And it's about the lengths that you will go for your family, but not in the way of he's getting into crazier and crazier haphazard situations. He's just, how long will he walk to keep searching? It's much more of a challenge than that. Like, at what point can you keep lying to your kid, or when does the kid start noticing? And the relationship between the father and the son, both were non-actors. I think it's the greatest child performance I've ever seen. Is so affecting. And there's a scene where the father decides to buy the son a meal while they're searching, and he spends more money than he should to show that it will be okay. That I think is like one of the most stressful sequences in a movie I've ever seen, as a really fantastic ending. It's less than 90 minutes. And this one is in the canon of the British Film Institute list, which doesn't just consider British film, it considers worldwide film. It's often been like 4th or 5th. This is a movie that, if you're getting into movies, is often on the film school syllabus. But I did do 4 movies that aren't, and I just really wanted to shout out that if any movie gets my vouch that's already canonized, iconic, it would be Bicycle Thieves. And with the honorable mention being this movie, Tokyo Story. But the reason is, I think Tokyo Story is another one that I am kind of shouting out right now. If you're not even reading between the lines, if you're just listening, I think it's a little bit of a harder watch because it is so deliberate. Yes. And the plot doesn't appeal until after an hour 30. If you like Bicycle Thieves, if you like Totoro, if you like those movies, then you should graduate to trying to watch the Uzu movies or Ingmar Bergman movies. Yeah. Those are really fantastic. But I think Bicycle Thieves is a good, I wouldn't say litmus test because it's not, but it's not in English and it's nothing like anything you've seen before. And so I think it's worth the shot if you're interested in getting more into movies.
I'm really glad that that was your number one. Because, I mean, there is a reason that there are top 100s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, not to discredit the thesis behind this entire episode, but like, there's a reason that the top 100 lists are full of things that we've heard of a lot of times.
And most often, I think they're worth watching. And I also want to say, I think if you watch all 10 of our movies, I would hope you like 9 of them, because I think it's good to have your own taste. And if you watch the top 100 movie lists, or if you start watching all the Best Picture nominees, I would hope that there's some that you don't want to watch, because even if something is canonized or celebrated, it's always good to understand why people like it, but also why you might not like it. Mm-hmm. And luckily, every movie AC said is a movie I really like, but even if he said one that I wasn't a fan of, I think it's still valuable on a list like this, because movies, not every movie should be made for everyone. And if you're listening to this podcast, I feel like those are the type of movies that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's really important to watch. We should watch movies to enjoy them, right? Like, we can't just dissect movies all the time just because we want to be fanatics about it. But
well, we did give Fantastic Four and Superman a shout out at the top of the episode. That's
true.
So I think that I hope we're coming off balanced.
Yeah, maybe when I'm talking about stretching my perspective, but also my understanding of other people's appreciation for film. And I think that's kind of why I had the idea for this episode, is because it's super important for everyone to have that. Now, maybe people don't have a full understanding of every single perspective of a film, and who could, but just trying our best as watchers to note the place that these movies have in our culture and in our lives.
I think that's a phenomenal place to transition to our final question. What movie that is a classic do you not like? I know we're mostly positivity, but I wanted to hear what is one you have a dissenting opinion on.
I did mention one that I said I would break into a 24-hour CVS and steal all their receipt paper for.
So you're going to stand by Citizen Kane.
I say Citizen Kane, but the hot take.
Okay.
The hot take that I've told you previously. I'm referencing a trilogy here. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
I know. This is a hot take for me in particular.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying it's one of my least favorite of the three. Is The Good and the Bad and the Ugly.
I know, and this is, as I've told AC, one of, if not my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And I mean, his take is that you like the other two better.
I like the other two better. I think it's because they were my introduction to the spaghetti western, and I just felt that the ending of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was a little bit too shoehorned in. Well, it is Clint Eastwood, so I mean, take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But I felt like the other two films were such classics. In The Good, and the Bad, and the Ugly is a great story, but it shoehorns its own beliefs at the end, when it felt like that wasn't the point of the Dollars trilogy. I'm not like it's not meant to be a trilogy because it's not even clear.
Yeah, it's retroactively a trilogy. Yeah.
But I think it's a great movie that just lands for me underneath the first two.
And this is the reason why I really love your take, is because I think that the ending climax, where Ennio Morricone's Ecstasy of Gold and then the trio plays, like those back to back, I think are like the two best pieces in film history. And I still hate that the Ecstasy of Gold is used for the Modelo commercials.
Yeah.
And it ends in a Mexican standoff. And to me, like the best executed climax on a director level, like the cut to the guns, they're not even moving, then the eyes, then the guns, and it's just like back and forth. It's like one of my all-time like favorite endings, like in the pantheon. I'm jealous of Sergio Leone for being able to create that every day of my life. I think it's a really fantastic movie.
Do you mind if let me refine my answer just a little bit, so viewers understand my understanding of the scene. Specifically, when they approach the troops and they get to the really drunk guy, from that frame to the end of that river scene, that's the part where I'm like, you didn't need that.
Okay.
But truly, the ending is beautiful, and I love the aspect that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
a
long one.
Discredit that.
It's a long one.
Yeah.
So my dissenting opinion is Goodfellas.
Oh,
and
really?
I don't think this is a movie. I'm a massive fan of Raging Bull, and there's a lot of Scorsese movies that I think are absolutely incredible. I love The Irishman. I even love Killers of the Flower Moon. Like it's not just early Scorsese, it's recent Scorsese, but Goodfellas. Ray Liotta narrates like 90% of the movie, and I just was done with it. I just hated the narration. I just thought that it wasn't. I thought it was telling, not showing. I really did.
Yeah.
I really did. A lot of people think that's the best movie of all time. And it's Scorsese's masterpiece. I think he's got like 12 movies better. I just like, because I'm a big fan. And he has narration in other movies that I really like by him. There's narration of Age of Innocence. I think the narration of Age of Innocence is based on a book. So is Goodfellas. And I'm pretty sure that the narration is just reading passages of the book. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And it's Daniel Day-Lewis delivering the lines. It's like he's doing informative poetry. And I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah.
And the Goodfellas, there's a shot where Ray Liotta was like, we're like family. And then it's also, the shot is a photo of the three people together. It's like, yeah, you didn't need that line. You could have just done the panning shot of the photo. And here I am criticizing a very specific Martin Scorsese thing. I'm just a dude with a microphone. That's what a podcast does to you. But anyways, I think that was a fantastic episode of Frame Rate. And I want to thank our guest and producer, AC Hoffman, for doing most of the work to bring your show. I'm your host, Kyle Pendleton, and we'll see you all next week.
Till next time.
Till next time.